It was early morning when Officer Haley spotted a worried-looking dog standing guard over a plain bag on the side of the road. Her gut told her something wasn't right, so she slowly approached. With every step, the dog growled louder, clearly on edge. Still, she had to see what was in that bag. Something was making this dog stay put, and she needed to find out why. The moment she unzipped it, Haley's breath caught in her throat. What she saw brought tears to her eyes. Earlier that morning, Officer Haley Stanton had been out on routine patrol when her stomach let out a growl. She spotted a convenience store at the corner and glanced around for a spot to pull over. "Quick, stop. I just need something small," she told her partner, Officer Jason Green, who was riding along with her. "Grab me a coffee too, would you?" Jason said, not realizing what the next few minutes would bring. Haley stepped out of the cruiser and walked toward the little store, hoping to grab something that would help her shake off the grogginess. She hadn't slept well, and all she wanted was a hot cup of coffee. As she walked in, the bell above the door jingled, and she immediately recognized the man behind the counter. "Hey, Wilson," she greeted, giving a small smile. The clerk looked up and waved. "Rough morning? Need a strong one?" he asked, after a quick glance at her face. Haley chuckled. "That obvious, huh?" She held up 2 fingers. "Make it 2. Jason needs 1, too." Wilson nodded and turned to get the coffee started, but then something caught Haley's attention. Even over the sound of the coffee machine, she heard a strange howling noise coming from the back of the store. It was faint, but enough to raise a red flag. She stepped a little closer to Wilson, who seemed totally unfazed by the sound, like he didn't hear it at all. But Haley wasn't about to let it go. "What's that noise?" she asked directly, eyeing Wilson closely. For a second, she saw a flicker in his expression. His eyes widened briefly before he shook his head. "Oh, that? Just a stray dog out back," he said casually, still focused on making the drinks. Haley wanted to believe him, but something didn't sit right. Before she could push more, he added, "I think one of the guys fed him, and now he won't leave us alone." Haley gave a slow nod. That made enough sense for her to let it go, at least for the moment. "2 coffees, Wilson said with a smile, sliding them across the counter. But Haley wasn't done just yet. "Yeah, and I'll take this sandwich and snack too," she added, grabbing a couple of things off the shelf. Wilson rang her up without a word. She paid quickly, took the drinks and food, and headed back toward the car. As she opened the door, Jason looked up, already ready to head out. "We good to go?" he asked, reaching for his coffee. But Haley paused. The barking was still faintly echoing from behind the store, and something about it tugged at her. "Hang on," she said, handing Jason the coffee cups. She tossed her sandwich onto the driver's seat, but held on to the other one. "I just need to check something real quick." She couldn't shake the feeling. Something wasn't right, and she needed to see for herself if that dog was okay. Jason raised an eyebrow, but just shrugged. "All right, just don't take too long," he said, taking a sip of his coffee and settling back in the car to wait. Haley gave him a quick nod before turning and heading back. Not through the front this time, but toward the alley she guessed would lead around to the back of the store. As she moved along the narrow path, the barking grew louder, confirming she was heading in the right direction. When she rounded the corner, she spotted the source. A gray Staffordshire Bull Terrier was standing stiffly, not near the back door as she expected, but barking sharply at something else entirely. At first glance, it looked like the dog was barking at nothing. But stepping further into the alley, Haley realized that wasn't true. The dog wasn't just barking into the air, it was planted firmly in front of a brown paper bag, clearly focused on it. "What are you?" she said under her breath, but the sound made the dog snap its head toward her. Its barking stopped as they locked eyes, both still as statues for a beat. The dog didn't come at her, but it didn't relax either. It stayed protectively in front of the bag, clearly watching her every move. Haley stood still for a second, then took one slow step forward, trying to read its body language. The dog stayed tense, eyes locked on hers, ready to react. Something about the way it guarded that bag made her heart pick up. This wasn't random. That bag mattered. Haley moved with caution, keeping her posture calm and non-threatening. "It's okay, buddy," she said gently, hoping to ease the dog. The growling started again, low and steady. The dog's gaze flicked between her and the bag. Haley crouched down a little, palm facing out. "What's in there?" she asked in a soft tone, not expecting a response, but needing to say something. The growl grew louder, more serious now. The dog wasn't budging. Haley paused, uncertain. It was clear the dog meant business, and she didn't want to push too hard. "All right, I hear you," she whispered, thinking quickly. The alley was completely quiet, just her and this dog, and that bag. Whatever was inside, she had to find a way to see it without causing a scene. She hesitated, heart pounding. The dog's strange behavior meant there was more to this. She couldn't just leave. Taking a breath, she stared at the bag, then back at the dog. "I need to know what's in there," she said quietly to herself. But rushing in wasn't an option, not with how tense the animal was. She needed another way. Realizing she couldn't handle this on her own, Haley reached for her radio and called Jason. "Jason, I need you out back. There's a dog here, guarding something." "I can't get close," she said steadily. A second later, his voice came back over the radio, sounding focused. "Got it. Be right there." Haley exhaled. Backup was on the way. Jason moved fast, following the path behind the store. As he entered the alley, he could hear the dog growling even before he saw them. "Haley, I'm here," he said quietly, not wanting to spook the dog. Haley gave him a quick look and a nod, grateful he'd come. "We have to find out what's inside that bag," she said, her eyes never leaving the scene in front of her. Once Jason arrived, he took one look at the bag and immediately agreed something wasn't right. He watched the dog closely, its stiff posture, the way it hovered over the bag. "Yeah, this feels off," he said, glancing over at Haley. "Any idea what's in there?" Haley shook her head. "Not yet, but we have to find out," she replied. There was a heaviness in the air as they stood there, weighing their next steps. They talked through a few options. Jason mentioned calling animal control, but Haley wasn't ready to bring in outside help just yet. "Let's try to handle it ourselves first," she said firmly. Jason nodded, seeing her point. "All right, but if anything goes wrong, we call for backup," he added. Haley agreed, glad he was thinking ahead. They didn't want to waste time, but they also couldn't afford mistakes. Jason suggested they try to lure the dog away so they could get a look at the bag. Haley agreed. "If we can distract it, that could give us a window," he said, scanning the alley. Haley gave a quick nod. "Yeah, worth trying," she replied, eyeing the dog again. Jason's eyes landed on a crumpled sandwich wrapper on the ground. "We might be able to use food," he said, holding it up. Haley's eyes lit up. An idea was forming. They quickly came up with a simple plan. Jason would draw the dog away while Haley checked the bag. "I'll use this and try to lead it off," Jason said, picking up the wrapper. Haley stayed locked on the bag. "Once it's distracted, I'll move in," she said, her tone steady. They exchanged a quick, focused look. Time to move. "All right, let's do this," Jason said, stepping forward with the wrapper in hand. Haley reached into the patrol car and grabbed the sandwich she'd bought earlier. "Here, use this instead. It's fresh," she said, handing it over. Jason took it, nodding. "Good call," he said, already shifting his focus back to the dog. "Let's hope it's hungry." Haley stayed still, her eyes on the dog, hoping the smell would do the trick. The growling started to ease as the dog caught the scent in the air. Jason approached slowly, crouching just a bit and holding the sandwich out like an offering. "Hey there, buddy," he said gently, keeping his tone calm. The dog sniffed the air, ears flicking forward. It was still cautious, but the deep growl had quieted. Jason took a careful step forward. "That's it. Easy now," he said, inching closer. The dog's eyes were glued to the sandwich, clearly interested. It worked. The dog began to follow Jason, its nose twitching as it trailed the smell of food. Jason backed away slowly, holding the sandwich where the dog could see it. "Come on, follow me," he said in a low voice. The dog crept forward, one step at a time, totally focused on the sandwich. Haley stayed completely still, watching and waiting for her chance. The timing had to be perfect. As soon as the dog was far enough, Haley made her move. She stepped in quickly, dropping to a crouch beside the bag. She looked over at Jason, who gave her a nod to go ahead as he kept leading the dog farther away. Haley's heart pounded as she unzipped the bag, half afraid of what she might find. She opened it slowly, then froze. Her eyes widened. Whatever was inside, it stopped her in her tracks. She reached in carefully, a tight knot forming in her chest. What she saw inside was going to change everything. As Haley looked into the bag, her eyes welled up with tears. The sight was too much. She glanced up at Jason, her voice unsteady. "Jason, you need to see this," she called out. Jason, still keeping the dog's focus on the food, looked over, concern growing on his face. Haley carefully reached into the bag, her hands trembling. A wave of sadness hit her hard, but so did the need to act fast. Inside the paper bag lay a frail, sickly kitten. It looked abandoned, barely hanging on. Its tiny body hardly moved, eyes half shut, fur dirty and clumped. Haley's chest tightened. "Oh, you poor little thing," she whispered, gently brushing her fingers over its head. The kitten gave a faint mew, and that soft sound lit a fire in Haley. This kitten needed help, and it needed it now. But that wasn't all. As she looked deeper into the bag, she spotted something else, small wrapped packets carefully tucked beside the kitten. Haley's eyes went wide. "Jason, this is more than just a kitten," she said, her voice low. Her mind was spinning. The contents meant this wasn't just about animal neglect. There was something illegal going on here, and it made everything more serious. Haley gently picked up the kitten, holding it close. Her hands were steady now, but her heart felt heavy. There was sorrow in the way the kitten shook, and anger too. Someone had left it like this, alongside contraband. "Who would do something like this?" she whispered, barely able to say the words. The tiny creature trembled against her chest, and she knew there wasn't time to waste. Without hesitation, Haley called out to Jason again, this time holding the kitten in plain view. "Jason, look at this," she said. Jason turned, eyes narrowing when he saw the small bundle in her arms. "There's also contraband in the bag," she added. Jason's expression changed immediately. "All right, we've got to move fast," he said, voice full of urgency. "That kitten comes first." Jason saw how serious things had gotten and nodded. "We can't wait," he said firmly. He glanced at the dog, still distracted by the sandwich. "I'll keep it busy. You get that kitten out of here." Haley nodded back, her grip on the kitten tightening just slightly. "I'm calling for help," she said, already reaching for her radio. This had gone from strange to urgent fast. Suddenly, the dog started barking again, louder this time. It had spotted Haley holding the kitten, and its barking picked up sharply. The sound startled Haley for a second. "It's okay, boy," she said softly, trying to calm the moment. Jason looked over quickly, concern etched into his face. "Not good," he muttered. The barking echoed around them, raising the pressure. Haley knew they had reached the limit of what they could handle alone. "We need animal control," she said firmly, holding the kitten close. Jason didn't argue. "I'll call them now," he replied, grabbing his radio. The kitten's tiny heartbeat fluttered against Haley's chest, and she cradled it tightly. They needed help, both for the dog and this fragile little life in her arms. Jason got on the radio right away, giving a full report. "We've got a protective stray dog, an abandoned kitten in poor condition, and some suspicious materials," he told dispatch. The reply came back quickly. Help was on the way. "Hang in there, Haley," Jason said, looking over at her. "They're sending someone." Haley gave a small nod, grateful. The dog was still barking, but knowing help was coming made the weight just a little easier to carry. Haley looked closer at the kitten and noticed a small collar around its neck. There was a tag. "Jason, look at this," she said, holding it up. Jason leaned in. "There's an address here," Haley added. The tag was worn, but the writing was still readable. Her mind started racing. Who would leave such a tiny, helpless animal in a situation like that? They decided to follow up on the address once both animals were taken care of. "As soon as animal control arrives, we'll check it out," Jason said. Haley nodded, already thinking through the possibilities. "We've got to make sure the kitten and the dog are okay first," she replied. They both had a feeling this was just the start of something much bigger. The situation was quickly growing more serious. Animal control arrived quickly, moving in to secure both animals. They handled the dog gently, making sure it was calm. "Thanks for getting here so fast," Haley told one of the officers. "No problem, ma'am," he replied. Another officer carefully lifted the kitten from Haley's hands and wrapped it in a soft blanket. "We'll make sure this little guy gets checked out right away," he promised. Haley and Jason stood back as the team handled everything smoothly. With the animals safe, Haley and Jason got back in the car and headed toward the address on the collar. "Never been over here before?" Jason commented as they drove through unfamiliar streets. Haley double-checked the paper tag. "Let's hope we get some answers," she said, her tone steady. As they drove, the surroundings started to change. The buildings looked older, more worn. The closer they got, the rougher the area became. Jason's eyes scanned their surroundings. "Keep alert," he warned. The houses were run down, some with broken windows or yards full of weeds. Haley felt uneasy. "This place gives me the chills," she admitted. They were almost there, but the deeper they went, the more tense things felt. They pulled up to a house that looked like it hadn't been cared for in years. The paint was peeling, and the porch looked like it might collapse. Haley checked the numbers again. "This is it," she said. Jason parked, and they both looked at each other. "Ready?" he asked. Haley gave a small nod, bracing herself. They stepped out of the car and approached the front door with caution. Haley knocked firmly, ready for whatever response might come. Inside, they could hear faint movement, floorboards creaking. Jason stood beside her, hand resting on his holster just in case. After a moment, the door opened slowly, revealing a man who looked anything but friendly. "What do you want?" he asked, voice rough. Haley held up the collar. "We're looking for someone connected to this kitten," she said. The man squinted at them, shaking his head. "Kitten? Don't know what you're talking about," he said, eyeing them suspiciously. Haley held the collar a little higher. "This address is on the tag. Are you sure you don't know anything?" she asked firmly. The man shook his head again, but something about his expression didn't sit right. Jason took a step forward, ready to support Haley if needed. They pressed the man for more information, not letting up. "We found the kitten left in a dangerous place," Jason said calmly. "We just want to be sure it's safe now." The man shifted uncomfortably, clearly nervous. "Look, I don't know anything," he repeated, but his eyes told a different story. Haley could sense it. He was hiding something, and she wasn't about to let it slide. The man paused, clearly weighing his options, then finally spoke. "Maybe my niece had something to do with it," he muttered, glancing toward the inside of the house. Haley looked at Jason, sharing a quick glance. "Would it be all right if we spoke with her?" she asked. The man sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. "All right, come in," he said, sounding far from thrilled. The air was thick with tension as they stepped inside. He led them down a short hallway, stopping in front of a room where a young girl stood nervously. "Madeline, these officers need to talk to you," he said, his voice suddenly softer. The girl looked up at them, her eyes full of fear. "It's okay," Haley said gently. "We just want to ask you about the kitten." Madeline nodded slowly, glancing from her uncle to the officers. I found the kitten," she said quietly. Madeline explained in a shaky voice that she'd found the kitten, but her uncle didn't want it in the house. "It was outside, all alone," she said, wringing her hands. "I tried to take care of it, but Uncle said no pets were allowed." Jason frowned, sensing there was more behind the story. "Did he say why he wanted it gone?" he asked, hoping she'd open up more. She went on, describing how she'd done her best to help the kitten, even though her uncle disapproved. "It was so little, and scared," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I brought it in, gave it some milk, made a bed from an old towel." She glanced over at her uncle, then looked down. "But he got really mad when he found out. Said it couldn't stay." Her eyes shimmered with tears. Madeline shared that, even after her uncle made her get rid of it, she couldn't stop thinking about the kitten. "He told me to take it back outside," she whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. "So I left it near the store. I thought maybe someone would see it and help." She looked at Haley and Jason with watery eyes. "I didn't want to abandon it. I just didn't know what else to do." Haley nodded gently, moved by her honesty. Jason and Haley leaned in a little, sensing this wasn't just about a forbidden pet. "Madeline," Jason said softly, "did your uncle give you a reason why he was so determined to get rid of the kitten?" She shook her head. "He just kept saying no pets allowed," she replied, her voice cracking. Haley gave Jason a look. "You're sure there's nothing else you remember?" she asked, hoping for a little more. They decided to speak to her uncle again, needing answers that Madeline clearly didn't have. "We need another word with him," Haley said, her voice more serious now. They walked back into the living room where the man stood watching them. "We've got a few more questions," Jason said as he stepped forward. The man crossed his arms tightly, his expression closing off. "Now what?" he snapped. He stayed defensive at first, not giving up much. "I told you I didn't want the kitten in the house," he said sharply. "That's it." Haley and Jason looked at each other. Something still didn't add up. "We need the truth," Haley said firmly. The man exhaled hard and rubbed his temples. "Fine, maybe there's more to it," he admitted at last, a hint of hesitation cracking through his tough tone. They pressed the uncle further, especially about the illegal contraband found with the kitten. But his face changed, fear creeping in. "You don't understand. I can't talk about that," he said, voice shaking. "If I do, they'll come after me." Haley and Jason exchanged tense looks. This wasn't just a small-time issue. Whatever he was involved in, it was part of something much bigger and far more dangerous. Realizing the risk, Haley and Jason assured him they could protect him. "We've got your back," Jason said firmly, "but you have to help us understand what we're dealing with." Haley nodded beside him. "If this is part of something bigger, we need to stop it before it hurts anyone else." The uncle looked down, thinking hard. Then, slowly, he gave a small nod. He knew he was out of options. He admitted he wasn't trying to get anyone in trouble, but said he'd dump the kitten and the bag at the same time. "I didn't think the kitten would stay with the bag," he said, rubbing his forehead. "I just wanted to be done with both problems." Haley and Jason listened carefully, the full picture starting to come together piece by piece. Then came the part that made everything click. He revealed who had given him the job, and it was a name Jason and Haley both knew too well. "It was some guys from that gang," the man said, hesitating. "They paid me to hold the stuff for a while." Jason's eyes widened slightly. "Haley, that's the crew we've been tracking," he whispered. "We've never had solid proof until now." Wasting no time, they radioed back to their precinct with what they'd just learned. "We've got a link between the gang and the contraband," Jason reported. "This could be the break we've been waiting for." The precinct captain responded almost immediately. "Good job, both of you. Start planning the next steps. We're moving on this." Haley felt a jolt of energy. This might be their chance to finally shut the operation down. They worked quickly, mapping out locations connected to the gang based on what Madeline's uncle had shared. "We need to move fast and make sure no one slips away," Jason said, laying everything out. Around them, officers moved with purpose, getting briefed and checking equipment. "We've got addresses and timelines. Let's make sure we hit them all at once," Haley added, scanning their notes. The whole team was ready. Everyone knew this wasn't going to be easy. As final checks were made, the captain addressed the group. "Be alert. These guys are organized, and they won't go quietly," he warned. Haley tightened the straps on her gear, feeling the pressure in her chest. Jason gave her a look and a small nod. "We're ready," he said simply. The team was locked in, focused, and ready to go. As they rolled out, Haley's thoughts raced. She felt nervous, but more than anything, determined. "Here we go," she whispered to herself, gripping her gear tightly. Jason noticed and offered a quick smile. "We've got this," he said calmly. Haley took a breath and nodded. There was no turning back now. It was time to end this. For good. The raid started early in the morning, with police teams closing in on the gang's known hideouts. "Everyone in position," the captain's voice came through the radio. Haley and Jason moved ahead with their team through the quiet early light of dawn. Suddenly, the silence broke. "Move in now," Jason shouted as they advanced. The operation had officially begun, and there was no time to waste. Haley and Jason led the charge, breaking down the door and rushing inside. "Police! On the ground!" Haley yelled as they stormed the main room. The gang members scattered, trying to run. Jason tackled one, pinning him down, while Haley quickly cuffed another. "Check every corner," she ordered, keeping watch. In just a few minutes, they had control and began their search for more evidence. Inside, they uncovered more illegal items, clear proof of the gang's involvement. "We just hit gold," Jason said, lifting another stash. Haley gave a quick nod, eyes scanning everything. "This is enough to make the charges stick," she replied. The team moved carefully, collecting every piece. They knew the evidence would be key to ending this gang's operations for good. Several gang members were arrested on the spot, and the evidence was strong enough to move the case forward. "We got them all," Jason said, watching the suspects being led out in cuffs. Haley felt a wave of relief. "This is why we don't give up," she said. Around them, officers worked fast to log the evidence and secure the site. It was clear their efforts had finally paid off. As things wrapped up, Haley let herself breathe a little easier. "We did it," she said, her voice lighter. Jason smiled and nodded. "Yeah, we really did." The pressure of the morning started to lift as they looked around. Their team had pulled it off, and the threat was no longer hanging over their heads. Haley stood quietly for a moment, letting it sink in. Back at the station, the captain congratulated them both. "Great work out there," he said, giving them each a firm pat on the back. "You two made this happen." Haley and Jason shared a proud look. "Couldn't have done it without the team," Haley said honestly. The precinct was buzzing with energy. This win meant something big to everyone. The kitten, now safe and healing, was doing much better. Madeline was all smiles as she hugged Haley tight. "Thank you so much," she whispered. The kitten, playful and healthy again, purred in her arms. "We're just glad everything turned out okay," Haley said with a warm smile. Jason reached over and gave the kitten a soft pat. "Looks like this little guy's in good hands now," he said. It was the best ending they could have hoped for. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves stories with heart. Thanks for being here. We've got more true stories coming your way.
If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and consider sharing it with someone who may find it interesting. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.